Hey, welcome back to the channel. One coin, struck in silver on the eve of war. A nation barely 13 years old standing at the edge of history. Today we uncover the top 5 most demanding Australian florins sold for nearly $800,000 because it is far more than money. It is Australia's story, frozen in time. Let's moving on. First up, the 1910 Australian One Florin. The year was 1910, and Australia was on the cusp of monumental change. The Federation had only recently been established, and the young nation was beginning to carve out its own identity on the world stage. Among the most symbolic steps in this journey was the creation of its first national coinage, a unifying, monetary system that represented independence, modernity, and the cultural pride of a people, eager to distinguish themselves from their colonial past. In this transformative year, one coin emerged not merely as a medium of exchange, but as a lasting emblem of Australia's heritage, the 1910 Australian One Florin. Today, this remarkable coin commands market values as high as $25,000, not merely because of its rarity, but because of the story it carries within its finely struck silver surface. Collectors and investors alike understand that coins are not just pieces of metal. They are capsules of history, tangible links between past and present. The 1910 One Florin is particularly significant because it was the first florin ever struck for the Commonwealth of Australia, minted in sterling silver, a 925 purity. It bore designs that reflected both the influence of the British monarchy and the emerging confidence of a nation ready to take its place in the world. At 2 shillings in value, it was a coin that held considerable purchasing power at the time. Yet over a century later, its worth has transcended face value and bullion content. It has become an artifact that speaks to connoisseurs of numismatics, historians, and serious investors in tangible assets. When one examines the obverse, the coin bears the portrait of King Edward VII, a monarch whose reign was tragically brief but influential nonetheless. The royal profile, engraved with precision, not only established legitimacy for the new coinage, but also tied the young Federation back to the broader traditions of the British Empire. The reverse is equally captivating, with the distinctive Australian coat of arms, featuring the iconic kangaroo and emu, presented with both heraldic dignity and national pride. For collectors, this marriage of design elements makes the florin a masterpiece of numismatic art, a coin that transcends simple utility to embody cultural symbolism. Yet what elevates the 1910 Australian One Florin to its astonishing modern valuation is not only its history or artistry, but also its scarcity and pristine condition. While many of these coins entered circulation, the attrition of daily commerce, environmental exposure, and the melting down of silver over the decades has meant that very few examples survive in high-grade states today. Those that do, particularly in mint state or proof-like conditions, have become exceedingly sought after in global auctions. The price tag of $125,000 reflects not just market speculation but the undeniable rarity and demand for this piece. To acquire such a coin is to own one of the most significant numismatic treasures ever produced in Australia. For seasoned investors, the coin also represents more than historical curiosity. It stands as a resilient store of value. At a time when markets fluctuate, currencies rise and fall, and digital assets face uncertainty, the allure of hard assets such as rare coins continues to attract serious attention. The 1910 florin embodies a perfect convergence of qualities: limited supply, extraordinary cultural relevance, and enduring desirability across multiple continents. Institutions, private collectors, and even museums vie for opportunities to secure an example, creating competitive bidding environments that drive its market value ever higher. What is also compelling is the personal narrative each surviving coin carries. Consider the journeys these pieces may have taken, perhaps exchanged during the earliest years of Federation, perhaps passed from settler to shopkeeper, perhaps kept as a keepsake during world wars and times of uncertainty. Each coin becomes not just a collector's item, but a storyteller in its own right, linking generations of Australians to their national past. Holding a 1910 florin in one's hand is akin to holding a physical fragment of the country's founding chapter, a connection that transcends mere monetary worth. This resonance is why high-grade examples consistently draw attention at prestigious auction houses. Catalog descriptions highlight not only technical grading details, such as luster, strike sharpness, and absence of wear, but also the narrative significance of the coin. Collectors do not simply compete for silver. They compete for the right to safeguard a piece of the Australian story. When a 1910 florin in exceptional condition crosses the block, the atmosphere in the auction hall shifts palpably. Each bidder understands that they are not merely purchasing an artifact, they are investing in legacy, in prestige, and in an asset that carries cultural and financial weight in equal measure. And beyond the numbers and the market metrics, there is the simple, undeniable beauty of the coin itself. The crisp lines of Edward VII's profile, the national shield, the emu and kangaroo standing guard. These design features are not only historic but aesthetically enduring. In an era when coins were struck with genuine craftsmanship, without reliance on mass industrialized methods, every detail carries the touch of artistry. It is this beauty, combined with its scarcity and symbolic power, that has made the 1910 Australian One Florin one of the crown jewels of numismatic collections worldwide. To speak of a market value of $125,000 is to recognize not just the financial worth, but the intersection of history, rarity, craftsmanship, and narrative significance that converge in this singular coin. It is a reminder that true value lies not only in metal content or catalog listings, but in the cultural resonance a coin carries across time. For the discerning collector or investor, securing a 1910 florin is not just an acquisition, it is a triumph. A rare opportunity to hold in one's hands the very essence of Australia's numismatic and national heritage. Next up, the 1911 Australian One Florin. The dawn of 1911 marked a new chapter not only in Australian history, but in the evolution of its coinage. The Commonwealth was still a fledgling federation, proud of its newfound national identity, and eager to distinguish itself from its colonial origins while still maintaining the unmistakable ties to the British monarchy. In that pivotal year, the second issue of Australia's national currency emerged. The 1911 Australian One Florin, a coin that today commands values as high as $42,000, a reflection of its scarcity, artistry, and historical significance. The obverse design shifted notably from its predecessor. Edward VII had passed in 1910, and with his death, the coinage of the empire transitioned to bear the profile of his successor, King George V. For Australians, this was more than a simple change in portraiture. It represented continuity of imperial authority, alongside the early stirrings of national distinctiveness. George V's profile, masterfully engraved, conveyed both dignity and strength. To hold a 1911 florin was to hold the symbol of a living monarch's reign at a time of immense global change. The reverse of the coin retained the Commonwealth coat of arms, a design featuring the kangaroo and emu, emblems uniquely Australian, supporting the shield. These creatures, chosen because neither walks backward, symbolized progress and forward momentum, sentiments perfectly aligned with the aspirations of the young federation. The design elements of this coin thus represented both tradition and progress, tying Australia's colonial heritage to its emerging national identity. From a technical standpoint, the coin was struck in sterling silver, 925 purity, and carried the denomination of 2 shillings. But while millions were minted, the passage of time has proven merciless to surviving examples. Circulation wear, the melting of silver during times of economic hardship, and simple attrition have left us with very few pristine survivors. It is this scarcity and top-grade condition that explains why collectors today are willing to pay market prices of up to $42,000 for exceptional specimens. In numismatics, rarity is the heartbeat of value, and the 1911 florin exemplifies this truth perfectly. The significance of this coin extends beyond simple rarity. It was the first florin of the George V era, marking the beginning of one of the most collectible and beloved monarch portrait series in Australian numismatics. Collectors view it not only as a standalone rarity, but also as the opening chapter of a larger narrative. The series of George V coinage that would dominate Australian circulation until the early 1930s. Owning the 1911 florin is thus akin to owning the foundation stone of a dynasty of coins, a keystone piece for serious collections. Auction houses around the globe have borne witness to the competitive energy surrounding these coins. When a 1911 florin in uncirculated or proof-like condition appears in catalogs, bidders are quick to recognize the opportunity. The descriptions highlight the brilliance of its silver surfaces, the sharpness of its strike, and the allure of its historical context. It is never simply a 2-shilling coin. It is a statement piece, a rarity whose acquisition signals a collector's refined eye and deep appreciation of Australian numismatic history. In the modern investment climate, the 1911 florin holds another dimension of appeal: tangible security. While paper assets fluctuate and digital markets tremble with volatility, rare coins remain steadfast as alternative investments. A high-grade 1911 florin combines cultural heritage, scarcity, and intrinsic silver value with the undeniable prestige of ownership. At $42,000, it does not merely sit in a collection, it anchors it, drawing admiration and respect from peers and potential buyers alike. What further elevates the coin is its aesthetic quality. Examine the portrait of George V, the beard carefully detailed, the crown's texture crisply struck, the profile imbued with a lifelike quality that exemplified early 20th century minting artistry. On the reverse, the kangaroo and emu flank the shield with regal poise, their stance reflecting resilience and pride. These design features transform the coin from simple monetary instrument to artistic masterpiece. More than a century later, the craftsmanship continues to inspire collectors and historians alike. To hold such a coin is to hold history itself. One can imagine its presence in early 20th century Australia, exchanged in bustling markets carried by settlers, or perhaps carefully preserved by patriotic hands, who recognized its symbolic importance from the start. Each surviving 1911 florin is more than a collector's prize. It is a time capsule, a physical link to the first decade of the Federation, and the promise of a nation, still defining its identity. At today's market valuation of $42,000, the 1911 Australian One Florin is not just a numismatic treasure, it is a powerful reminder of how history, artistry, scarcity, and national pride converge to create value that far exceeds metal content or face denomination. For the seasoned collector, it is a cornerstone acquisition, a jewel in the crown of Australian coinage. For the investor, it is a resilient and appreciating asset. For the historian, it is a story struck in silver, carrying the echoes of a young nation's journey into maturity. Next up, the 1912 Australian One Florin. The year 1912 occupies a unique and almost mythical place in the story of Australian numismatics. By this time, the Commonwealth was entering its second decade of federation, still navigating the balance between national independence and imperial tradition, still defining its cultural symbols, and still producing coinage that would become the bedrock of its economic life. Amid this period of transition came a coin so rare, so elusive, and so fiercely sought after that it has come to represent one of the crown jewels of Australian currency, the 1912 Australian One Florin. Today, this coin commands valuations soaring as high as $315,000, a testament to its extraordinary scarcity, impeccable significance, and the relentless passion of collectors who pursue it. At first glance, the coin might appear similar to its predecessors. The obverse bears the profile of King George V, who had only recently ascended the throne, his image crisply engraved with regal authority. The reverse features the Commonwealth coat of arms, an unmistakable Australian design, with a kangaroo and emu standing guard beside the shield. But beneath these familiar details lies a deeper truth. The 1912 florin was struck in quantities so limited and has survived in such minuscule numbers in high condition that it has become one of the most prized rarities in the entire Australian pre-decimal series. Scarcity is the lifeblood of value in numismatics, and the 1912 florin embodies this principle to the fullest. While the exact original mintage was modest compared to other years, it is the survival rate of top-quality examples that has elevated its mystique. Most of the 1912 issue entered everyday commerce, suffering the wear and abrasion of circulation. Over decades, many were lost, melted, or reduced to well-worn relics. Today, the number of known examples in pristine, mint-state condition can be counted on the fingers of one hand. It is this breathtaking rarity that explains why collectors and investors are willing to pay prices exceeding $300,000 for the privilege of ownership. Auction houses around the world treat the appearance of a 1912 florin in exceptional condition as a historic event. Catalogs dedicate entire pages to its description, emphasizing the clarity of George Fist's portrait, the sharpness of the shield, the reflective brilliance of the silver fields, and the absence of wear. Bidders know that opportunities to secure such a coin are almost non-existent. The atmosphere in the room becomes electric as hands rise, bids escalate, and history changes hands. Each sale sets new benchmarks for Australian numismatics, reinforcing the 1912 florin's reputation as one of the ultimate trophy coins for the discerning collector. But its value cannot be measured by rarity alone. The 1912 florin holds profound symbolic resonance. It belongs to an era when Australia was still forging its identity, when silver coinage was not just currency but a statement of sovereignty. For historians, the coin captures the spirit of a young nation, still tied to its monarch, yet eager to assert its distinctiveness. For Australians today, it represents a tangible relic of their national journey, a small, gleaming artifact that bridges the distance between federation and modernity. From an investor's perspective, the 1912 florin is also a paragon of tangible wealth. Unlike volatile stocks or digital assets, rare coins offer stability rooted in physical scarcity and timeless demand. To own a 1912 florin is to possess an asset that not only holds its value, but consistently appreciates as global collectors compete for fewer and fewer opportunities, with prices reaching $315,000. The coin is no longer simply a collectible. It is a blue-chip investment, a store of wealth preserved in silver and history. One cannot overlook the artistry either. The engraving of King George V's portrait is executed with striking finesse, his beard and crown rendered with crisp lines that catch the light in remarkable ways. The reverse design, with the kangaroo and emu, conveys both dignity and forward motion, reflecting the optimism of a federation still in its youth. When preserved in mint condition, the coin radiates a brilliance that commands admiration from anyone who beholds it. It is as much a work of art as it is a monetary instrument. To hold a 1912 florin in the hand is to hold an object that few people on earth will ever encounter. It is to hold a coin that might have circulated briefly in the early 20th century, only to be set aside, cherished, and ultimately preserved against all odds. It is to feel the weight not just of sterling silver, but of a nation's history condensed into a single artifact. Collectors describe the experience as nothing short of awe-inspiring, for they know that they are touching a piece of Australia's numismatic soul. At a market valuation of $315,000, the 1912 Australian One Florin stands as more than a rare coin. It is a cultural treasure, an investment-grade artifact, and a symbol of both national heritage and global prestige. To own it is to join a select circle of collectors who have secured one of the most elusive and desirable coins ever struck on Australian soil. For those fortunate enough to add it to their collection, it is not merely an acquisition, it is a triumph, a lasting legacy, and a piece of history that transcends time itself. Next up,
the 1913 Australian One Florin.
The year 1913 carried with it the energy of a young commonwealth, still defining its place in the modern world. Australia was barely a dozen years into federation, and while the challenges of self-determination, identity, and global participation lay ahead, the nation's coinage stood as one of the most enduring symbols of its independence and unity. Among these early issues, the 1913 Australian One Florin emerges as a highly coveted rarity, valued today at up to $56,000, a key, shining emblem of artistry, scarcity, and enduring historical importance. At first glance, the 1913 florin carries the familiar face of King George V on the obverse, his profile sharply struck and imbued with the regal authority of a monarch whose reign would span the turbulence of World War I. The reverse remains steadfast to tradition, the Australian coat of arms, flanked by the kangaroo and emu, icons of national resilience and forward momentum. This was not merely a coin to facilitate commerce. It was a canvas on which Australia projected its story to the world. What elevates the 1913 florin from silver currency to numismatic treasure is its exceptional scarcity and top-grade condition. While the coin entered circulation in reasonable numbers, the majority suffered the harsh realities of daily use. The attrition of commerce wore down the crisp features of the king's portrait, dulled the luster of the silver fields, and eroded the fine detailing of the coat of arms. Over decades, countless examples were lost, melted or reduced to worn relics, leaving behind only a fraction in high mint state condition. Those survivors, dazzling in their brilliance, now command the attention of collectors and investors worldwide. When a 1913 florin of superior grade appears at auction, the anticipation is palpable. Catalogs celebrate its strike, its luster, its sharpness of detail, and the sheer rarity of its preservation. Bidding wars erupt not only because of the coin's beauty, but because of the recognition that such opportunities are fleeting. The hammer price, often in the vicinity of $56, yearn for the finest. Examples underscores the reality that this is a coin whose significance far outweighs its face value or silver content. It is an object of prestige, an investment in history, and a jewel in the crown of any numismatic collection. The historical context further enhances its allure. By 1913, Australia stood on the brink of profound change. The Great War loomed just a year away, a conflict that would test the strength and spirit of the young nation like never before. The 1913 florin is thus one of the last coins struck in the relative calm before that storm, a final echo of pre-war optimism. To hold it is to hold a tangible reminder of the world as it was, before the upheavals of war and global transformation. From an investor's perspective, the coin represents a rare convergence of qualities: cultural resonance, artistic craftsmanship, and genuine scarcity. Unlike commodities or modern bullion, whose values fluctuate with market cycles, rare coins derive their worth from intrinsic, historical, and collector-driven demand. The 1913 florin is not an asset that can be replicated, reproduced, or inflated. Its population in high-grade condition is frozen in time, ensuring that competition among collectors only intensifies with every passing decade. At $56,000, it remains a cornerstone of stability and appreciation in the world of tangible investments. The artistry of the piece cannot be understated. King George V's portrait, struck with precision, captures a monarch at the beginning of a reign that would shape an era. The reverse, with its bold coat of arms and proud national emblems, communicates dignity and resilience. When preserved in pristine condition, the coin's fields flash with brilliance, its edges crisp, its relief strong, a miniature masterpiece that speaks as eloquently today as it did over a century ago. And yet, beyond the artistry and market value, lies something more intangible: the sense of connection. Each surviving 1913 florin tells a story of endurance. Perhaps it once passed through the hands of early settlers in Sydney or Melbourne. Perhaps it was exchanged during a transaction on a country farm, or carried overseas by an Australian soldier as a keepsake. Each piece is a bridge across generations, linking the past to the present through the silent eloquence of silver. At a market valuation of $56,000, the 1930 Australian One Florin transcends its origins as currency. It is a rare collectible, a store of value, a national artifact, and above all, a symbol of Australia's journey from federation to modern nationhood. For the seasoned collector, acquiring one is more than an addition to a portfolio. It is an achievement, a triumph, and a privilege to safeguard, one of the most coveted coins of the Commonwealth's formative years. Next up, the 1914 Australian One Florin. The year 1914 stands as a watershed moment in both Australian and global history. The world was about to be swept into the greatest conflict humanity had yet endured, the First World War. For Australia, a young nation barely 13 years into federation, the war would become a defining crucible, forging identity, loyalty, and sacrifice on the international stage. Against this backdrop, the 1914 Australian One Florin was struck, a coin that today is revered not only for its scarcity, but also for the profound historical weight it carries, with valuations climbing to $280,000. In pristine condition, this florin is regarded as one of the most prized treasures in Australian numismatics. The obverse features the profile of King George V, his image engraved with sharp precision, symbolizing both continuity and authority. The king's reign was just entering a period of global turbulence, his portrait a reminder of imperial unity at a time when the empire faced its greatest test. On the reverse, the familiar Commonwealth coat of arms once again takes pride of place, supported by the kangaroo and emu, two creatures unable to step backward, symbolic of a federation pushing resolutely forward despite looming uncertainty. For Australians, this design was not merely ornamental. It represented resilience and progress in an era of instability. The extraordinary value of the numismatist florin lies in its rarity in the highest states of preservation. While the coin was produced for circulation, very few examples survived the rigors of daily commerce without significant wear. Most entered the economy during a period of global upheaval, passing through countless hands as war loomed and resources strained. Over time, attrition, loss, and the melting down of silver decimated the population of surviving specimens. Today, examples graded in mint state condition are among the rarest of all. Australian pre-decimal coins, explaining their staggering market value of nearly $300,000. Auction houses that list a 1914 florin in exceptional grade treat the event as headline-worthy. The catalog descriptions are meticulous, the brilliance of its luster, the sharp relief of the royal portrait, the crispness of the coat of arms, and the clean, unblemished surfaces. Collectors recognize instantly that they are bidding on more than silver. They are competing for the right to own a relic of Australia's pre-war identity, a coin that bridges the last moments of peace with the sacrifices of the coming war. As the gavel falls, prices surge, and new benchmarks for Australian numismatics are set. The historical resonance of this coin cannot be overstated. Struck in the same year that Australian troops would answer Britain's call to arms, the 1914 florin represents a nation standing at the edge of transformation. It is a silent witness to the outbreak of war, a year when young Australians departed for distant battlefields, many never to return. For modern collectors and historians alike, the coin embodies this poignant moment, transforming it into an artifact that is both tangible and deeply symbolic. From an investment standpoint, the 1914 florin is a paragon of stability and growth. Unlike commodities subject to volatile cycles, its value is anchored by scarcity, cultural significance, and unrelenting global demand. With only a handful of surviving top-grade examples, supply is frozen in time while demand continues to grow. The result is inevitable: sustained appreciation and strong market performance. At $280,000, it is not merely a coin, it is a store of wealth, a hedge against uncertainty, and a centerpiece investment that elevates any serious collection. The artistry of the coin is equally compelling. The portrait of King George V is regal and commanding, reflecting both authority and vulnerability on the eve of war. The reverse, with its dignified shield, kangaroo, and emu, is bold and confident, projecting a sense of resilience that mirrored the national psyche. In pristine condition, the surfaces gleam with brilliance, the reliefs stand sharp and proud, and the entire design exudes a quiet majesty that only intensifies its appeal. To hold a 1914 florin in hand is to feel the weight of more than silver. It is to touch history itself, to bridge the gap between past and present, to connect with a nation at the dawn of its first great test. Collectors often describe a profound sense of awe when encountering this rarity. for they recognize that they are in the presence of something far greater than money. They are holding a time capsule of Australia's youth, a relic of a world on the cusp of irrevocable change. At its current market valuation of $280,000, the 1914 Australian One Florin transcends numismatics. It is a symbol of sacrifice, resilience, and identity. It is a masterpiece of minting, a cultural artifact, and an investment of the highest order. For the fortunate few who acquire it, the coin becomes not just a possession, but a legacy, a reminder that value lies not only in metal or market, but in the timeless stories a single coin can carry across generations.